Hello, and welcome to Bread and Thread, a podcast about food and domestic history. I'm Liz.
And I'm Hazel. We are two friends who studied archaeology together and love history and also making things. So, what have you been making?
So, people might have seen on my Instagram when this goes up, it will be about a month ago. Time is confusing. I have a copy of the Penguin Book of Knitting, which is a book of knitting patterns from 1957.
Excellent.
So I'm making myself a sweater vest from that because I've always wanted one, and now I've just decided to do it.
That's really cool.
It's got like 3 lines of cabling up the front. It's really cute.
Oh, I will. Is that on your Instagram? Because I haven't seen that. I will go check it out. Sweet.
I've been looking at this YouTube channel and website a lot. I think the YouTube is Immaculate Bites, but the website is African Bites. It's like African and Caribbean food.
Okay.
And she has this mango lemonade recipe, which
Oh,
is the most refreshing thing I've ever put in my mouth.
that sounds amazing.
It's... Nick, can you close the window? It's absolutely spectacular. I ended up making it because she says to put sugar in, and I didn't put any sugar in, which I cannot imagine having it with any sugar because it was really sweet. Like that kind of sweet tartness you get with homemade lemonade. And then the mango is just really like... Can drinks be unctuous? Because I want to say unctuous.
I think mango can be unctuous.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm having needs.
I will send you a link. Maybe I'll tweet a link.
That would be great, yeah. We can all have a virtual mango lemonade party.
What have you been up to?
So yeah, on the subject of historical knitting, I recently discovered a YouTube channel called Engineering Knits, which is this woman who does a lot of historical knitting patterns, but she kind of makes them really accessible and has tips on how to work with 19th century patterns and that kind of thing. So I would really recommend that. And also the Stitch in Time books, which I do not have, but I really want, and I might get one of them next month. But they have a lot of vintage or older knitting patterns that are kind of updated for the modern day. Those are really good. I have seen things knitted from those patterns, and they are great. So that's the thing I really want to do. Haven't really... Well, I did make gnocchi the other day.
Oh, nice.
My first time making homemade gnocchi. It came out pretty good, I think. A little bit soft, but pretty tasty. With a nice homemade tomato and basil sauce. So, yeah, they were good. And kind of relaxing to make, actually.
Do you get into that kind of like meditative state that you get when knitting?
Sort of, yeah, like you're doing the mashing and you're doing the kneading, and then you just making the little gnocchs and shaping them, and it's kind of therapeutic, actually. So more gnocchi will be happening.
So, what are we learning about today?
Okay, get ready for some big facts about acorns. So I picked this one because it's starting to get a bit autumnal, and I was, out on a walk. Well, it's actually kind of warm at the moment, but nature is starting to get a bit autumnal, and we've got acorns.
By the time this goes up, it'll be cold.
Yeah, one would hope, at least, please. And so I was sort of crunching along on this walk, and acorns are falling, and I was like, I heard you can do things with acorns. I should find out more about that. And I did. And it turns out there is a whole episode's worth of acorn facts. So I hope you are ready for this.
I am ready, willing, and able to learn about acorns.
That is what I love to hear. And this, I mean, the way that this fits into bread and thread is that you can absolutely eat them. You shouldn't eat them raw because they can be toxic. I mean, they're probably not going to kill you, but they might give you a bad stomachache if you ate a lot of them raw. But they are toxic to horses, cows, and dogs, which is a problem because horses will eat them.
See, the dogs one is interesting because my dog used to like to pick up and eat green acorns off the floor.
Interesting. Well, hopefully not too many. I think it's in large quantities that they can be fatal. So the reason that they taste horrible to eat is they contain a lot of tannins, which makes them very, very bitter. Which is also the thing that is supposed to be good for you about wine, I think. But in acorns, it's just there's tons and they taste horrible. But with clever processing, they can be eaten, and in some places were a staple food.
I think I've vaguely heard of them being used for flour.
Yeah, so I remember going to like an Iron Age day, I think, where they were making things from acorn flour, like little drop scones, and that's where I first heard of it. But it turns out they've been eaten for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. So they can be made into flour. Like I said, they can be roasted. You can just eat them roasted. And you can also get acorn coffee, which technically isn't coffee. Like, it's not from the coffee bean, but it's made in the same way. Like, you roast them and then you grind them, and then you have something that...
In the same way that herbal teas aren't really teas.
Yeah. You end up with something that is kind of in the general ballpark of coffee, or at least satisfies that craving if you can't get coffee, as we'll go into in a bit. So
Favour.
yeah. So acorns, of course, are the fruit of the oak tree, which is apparently native to Europe, North America, and Western Asia, which is where a lot of the ancient uses of acorns come from. And of course, they've been planted all over the world, and they took off really well in America as well. In fact, are they native to North America? They might be.
You tell me.
I was reading about this, but I can't remember but they may well be. Basically everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere you've got acorns. So some years you'll get an extra big crop, and that's called a mast year. So the mass of trees, the fruit of trees, is often called the mast. And in a
sorry.
Sorry?
I got excited because I was reading about this the other day.
Awesome. Where?
Twitter. I follow a lot of like conservationists and nature people.
That doesn't surprise me.
I mean, I follow both kinds of conservationists, but the nature kind specifically here.
You're great. So yeah, that's as I'm sure you found out, it's a year when there's an extra big crop of acorns, and apparently that's because they try and put out the trees kind of put out so many, or save it all up for 1 year when they just put out so many that they can't possibly all get eaten by wildlife, and therefore some survive to become more oak trees. But then in the year following, you normally get very little to no crop at all because they used up all their energy in the last year. Mm-hmm. So a lot of ancient people took advantage of that to store up acorns in a mustier to cover the winter and the deficit in the next year. Acorns were often eaten by the ancient Greeks and Japanese, and lots of ancient peoples in famine times. But they also could be a staple of the diet. So, like in Iberia, they were pretty much a diet staple. And we know this because we've found evidence of them being prepared. So, for example, in a Neolithic site in South Korea, they found acorns or bits of acorn seed next to like hand grinders, like showing that they were obviously being prepared for flour. And
cool.
yeah,
I
that's
love
how we know
looking at
this kind of
recipes.
stuff. And so, yeah, they were often used traditionally coming out of ancient times, even that way as a supplement to the diet, especially in areas where there's a lot of acorns. And sometimes they were kind of managed as such, like there would be careful management of the forest in order to ensure good access to acorns. Like, for example, you know who's really good at land management? Native Americans.
What?
So, yeah. So they were traditionally used by Native Americans, especially in California, as a fairly important part of the diet. And people would, store them up and store them carefully so that they didn't get mold, because they contain quite a high percentage of fat, apparently, which means they need to be stored carefully. And then
a lot of nuts do, don't they? It's like the thing about why peanut butter actually isn't super healthy after all. It's
yeah,
largely fat.
but they do give you a lot of energy because of that.
Mm.
They're also very protein rich, acorns, which is why they're sometimes an important part of the diet, especially in winter. So yeah, especially in California, they would manage the forests in order to make sure that oaks were prominent, and that was done sometimes by controlled fires around the base of the oak, because oaks are pretty tolerant to that, whereas other trees that might compete with the oak are not. In order to ensure a constant supply of acorns.
Cool. It's like most extreme weeding I've ever heard of.
It is a bit more exciting than just like, I don't know, getting a hoe and scratching out some weeds. So there were a couple of particularly interesting foods traditional foods that I found out about as part of this. There are some traditional Korean and Japanese foods made from acorns. And apparently, particularly in mountainous areas, these would be popular. And they're still made today, although not so popular as with many traditional dishes that maybe are a bit tricky to prepare. But historically, in times when there's not much else, they would be key dishes. But you can, interestingly, interestingly, you can get they're acorn flour noodles. And you can get them in some kind of upscale Korean supermarkets. Like, I guess you would get heritage varieties of things in Waitrose or like fancy supermarkets in the UK.
Noodles.
Yeah, acorn noodle soup is a thing, which sounds great. And also, there's a kind of jelly, which I'm going to pronounce terribly, but I think it's something like totori muk, which is an acorn jelly. So very rich in protein and starch. And so they like leach the tannins out of the acorn and then make this jelly with it that's normally served kind of in a side dish cut up with some vegetables and stuff, which sounds delicious. And I really want to try it.
Yeah.
But I think that might be a little bit beyond my capabilities to make. So that might have to wait a little bit. Yeah, so Although you really don't hear about it much today, acorns are a lot more important in historical diets than you would think. But not just in ancient history. Acorn coffee was used in the American Civil War and in World War II Germany, specifically when they couldn't get supplies of coffee. So they used roasted ground acorns instead.
The ersatz foods.
Yeah. Yeah, like a good ersatz food.
Which we should do an episode on ersatz foods.
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Maybe I'll do that for the next episode.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Because I guess there's more like mock turtle soup.
There's mock apple pie as well.
What?
Yeah, and all sorts of like odd breads.
Okay, I am looking forward to this. Just to find out what you put in apple pie that isn't apples but tastes like them.
Maybe you just put in regular apples, but you're just really mean to them.
Wow. Oh, I see.
Yeah, you got there eventually.
I get it. You're mocking the apples. Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
So the thing is, and the thing that requires management sometimes of your oak trees is that oak trees don't bear acorns until they reach between 20 and 50 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So it really is like a long-term plan kind of thing. And like you've got to oak trees live a really, really long time. But if you've got loads of really old ones and then they die, then you're kind of stuck for your acorns. So yeah, that's something I didn't know. And there's a wonderful German folk tale that uses this fact. So the story is that a German farmer made a bargain with the devil for the prosperity of his farm. And he made this bargain that the devil could have his soul, but only as long as he waited until the farmer's first crop had been harvested. So that seems a pretty simple bargain, right? But as with a lot of these stories in which the humble farmer or woodcutter or whatever outwits the devil, the farmer plants acorns as his first crop, thus ensuring himself a very long life before his first crop is ready to harvest.
That's genius.
It's brilliant.
So very German, I feel.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stories from that area specifically that are like, what's this?
I just the like humble person tricking the devil is one of my favorite tropes in folklore. So yeah, it kind of makes sense that given there's so many oaks all over the place, it would kind of become a symbol in folklore. Apparently, the ancient Roman goddess Diana was often depicted wearing a necklace of acorns. And it's a symbol in lots of places. And wasn't there the story about Charles the First or Charles the Second hiding in an oak tree?
The story goes that he was, fleeing from the parliamentarians in the English Civil War and was hidden up an oak tree overnight. And this is why a lot of pubs in England at this point are called the Royal Oak.
There's so many. There's one 15 minutes down the road from me.
I have to look up right now where my nearest Royal Oak pub is.
Probably close.
Let's see if I can beat 15 minutes.
I've got a note here, like, as with basically every Bread and Thread episode, there's a pub link in this.
There is a pub a 3-minute drive from my house called the Royal Oak.
Excellent.
It's the one that I walked past on the way to the sweet shop.
I mean, I know we were going to do a road trip involving several pubs, but there is no way we can possibly visit every single Royal Oak pub in the UK. Like, we're not doing that.
Maybe post-lockdown I'll just go to the one by me.
Yeah. Maybe we can have a socially distanced drink in our respective Royal Oaks. So, after all this, I assume you're wondering, but how do I prepare acorns into something I can eat? Well, you can, and I got these methods off a fantastic article from the Woodland Trust called "Are Acorns Edible and Other Acorn Facts?" So I will put a link to that so you can.
What's the title of this article? Are there acorn facts?
No, it's "Are Acorns Edible and Other Acorn Facts?"
Are there acorn facts?
Just in case you were wondering.
I like the idea though of titling an article like "Are there acorn facts?"
I don't know. Does anyone
Only
have some?
acorn lies.
Only acorn fake news.
Acorn.
Bacon. I was thinking that, and then I was like, "Don't say it."
I have no such impulse.
Bacon news.
As anyone who listens to my other podcast will know.
It's guaranteed one of us is going to make the pun. So anyway, you can roast acorns with a bit of salt for 15-20 minutes on a high heat, and apparently they are crunchy and delicious. And after you've roasted them, you can also add them to stews. So that's one to think about. To make acorn coffee, so to make the acorn flour or the acorn coffee, you have to leach out the tannins. And you do this by either soaking them in cold or hot water. Cold water takes longer, but it leaves intact the kind of the starch and the stuff that makes it turn into flour. So if you're making acorn flour, you need to cold leach. For coffee, you can hot water leach with boiling water, and that's much quicker. You can do it in about an hour or so, whereas cold leaching takes a few days, maybe. So with coffee, you hot leach the tannins, then you roast them, and then you grind the acorns, and then you brew it like normal coffee. But to make acorn flour, you do cold leaching so that the floury stuff is still there, and then you can just grind them, and you get fluffy acorn flour, which you can use in biscuits or bread or kind of whatever. Really, you can use it almost like grain flour. So
I would
yeah,
love to try that. We're
me
going
too.
very soon. Maybe we should see if we can find some acorns as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely do that.
I found a thing about how you can make soap from conkers.
Okay.
If I find enough conkers, I will report back.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure that if you're just roasting them, you do need to leach them first. So
Yeah, that makes sense if
do
they're
that.
highly toxic.
Otherwise, they'll probably still be. I mean, I don't think they're highly toxic for humans, but just they won't taste nice. So
Nick, as the person that likes coffee, what do you think of the idea of trying acorn coffee?
It's the best making juice.
Can you answer in a serious way, please?
Yeah, why not?
We have such a strong statement there.
I reckon it's definitely tryable. I'm not a coffee fan generally, but I'd try it. I want to try acorn
really do
biscuits.
Bitter.
Yeah, and they're kind of bitter anyway, so I don't know. But I mean, according to our Acorns Edible and Other Acorn Facts, acorn coffee is naturally caffeine-free, has a unique taste, and while unlike traditional coffee,
That's
is
not
still
a promising phrase.
Yeah, I know. Apparently, it's delicious and warming though.
Like, earwax has a unique taste.
And is unlike traditional wax.
You know what to eat it.
No. So what's the
Yeah,
local larder
Try
today?
it once because of Harry Potter, but
Oh, those.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get the beans, can't you?
no, I mean I tried it because I read the first book and
Oh, like
he said that it
actual
tasted like
earwax.
earwax.
Okay.
In my defense, I was very small.
I don't think it was portrayed positively in the book.
No, but it made me curious. I just kind of went like, "Oh, I don't know what that tastes like. I can
Yes.
find out."
This is definitely explaining a few things about Liz's personality.
That's all you need to know.
Anyway, local larder time.
Yes. Not really a local this time, but I feel like it's small and it merits talking about. Um, blue raspberry.
What now?
Blue raspberry.
I thought that was just like a made up flavour.
It is, but it turns out it has a fun story.
Okay.
Um, so before sort of the late 50s, a lot of raspberry things were coloured with a dye called amaranth, which is unrelated to the grain.
Oh, okay.
And then the sort of food safety people in the US went, wait, this is probably not actually good for you. And it became this sort of big thing of like, oh, the color that they use for the raspberry drinks is incredibly unhealthy and it's gonna kill you. So they basically needed to stop making raspberry flavored things this deep red color.
I see.
Which was also useful anyway, just to differentiate it more, because then you could show off more colors and attract children.
Ethical marketing.
Yeah. So, where's it gone? Yeah, so this brand of slushies in America called Icy,
Good name.
spelled ICEE.
Oh no.
In the 70s ended up dyeing their new raspberry flavor bright fluorescent blue.
Oh god.
which,
I mean
which
that doesn't sound like it would be better for you than bright red.
oh, absolutely not. Bright red, which probably wasn't that bad for you in the first place, considering the tiny amounts that you use for these things.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a contrast with their existing colors. To sort of red cherry, you got some sort of bright yellow, lemon or pineapple flavored things, that it was just this huge pop of color. And obviously, that's not a food color. So it became
No.
this best-selling thing of just the blue drink.
Blue flavor.
But I mean, I think the best part is that you know how blue raspberry doesn't actually taste of raspberry?
I mean, yeah, I've not had much of it, but I imagine that would not be a particularly authentic raspberry taste.
Well, apparently the flavor of most blue raspberry things is a combination of banana, cherry, and pineapple.
Okay.
Which I guess you do need to do something with the color of that, because otherwise it's going to be just the worst color if you combine those.
Yeah. I get so blue raspberry is more kind of an aesthetic name.
Yeah. But it's still this huge flavor. This huge flavor. Like if you've ever got an ice pop, there's always a blue raspberry flavor.
I do remember those. Huh.
Or just like any sort of artificially fruit flavored sweet, there's gonna be a blue raspberry one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
just because of a combination of Icy having blue in their logo, so they lent towards blue, and this absolute health freak out in the 50s. But interestingly, there is a kind of raspberry that is blue,
Okay.
which is native to basically the western third of North America. Like, it goes all the way from Alaska down through the US down to Chihuahua, Mexico.
Wow.
It's called the white bark raspberry, or Rubus leucodermis, but it is completely unrelated to blue raspberry flavor,
Huh.
and probably was not even a factor in making the raspberry flavor blue.
What? I've never really thought about this before, but I guess the more you know.
Yeah. So yeah, not really a local larder, but I think, yeah, something that merited talking about even if it wasn't big enough for its own episode.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like a cool small fact.
Yeah,
Although it doesn't really make me that warmly disposed to blue raspberry flavored things.
I still love it. Like, it's that color. I already knew it was incredibly artificial. I just like the taste of it.
Fair enough. Wow. I have learned much today.
So, before we wrap up, I do want to just mention we're making a couple of changes to Patreon. Um, the £1 and £5 or dollar or whatever currency levels are staying the same. At one, you get access to the Discord server. At five, there's monthly bonus recipes. Um, we're going to try something a bit different where at the 10 level, which I believe is the cake level, um, we will make a short bonus episode on whatever bread and thready topic that you want and send it directly to you.
I mean, think about that. Bread and thread on demand.
So head to patreon.com/breadandthread if you want to make us talk about whatever your heart desires.
we will do it. We are simple creatures.
You give us the money, we say the thing.
we find facts and say them. Oh, by the way, I checked, and oak trees are native to North America and basically the whole northern hemisphere.
Excellent.
Yeah, and actually, North America has the most species of oak, so you're doing good.
Good job, North America.
Well done.
So we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have a suggestion for an episode or a local larder, you can email breadandthreadpodcast@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Twitter at Bread and Thread, and we mentioned our Patreon as well, patreon.com/breadandthread. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So we'll see you next time.